Hi and welcome. I'm Sarah Marshall of You Wellbeing and I'm here today with Katherine. Hi Katherine.
Hi Sarah.
Hi. And Katherine suffered with ME for about 5 years, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And we met in 2007, which was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And as I said, Katherine suffered with ME for 5 years and who is now fully recovered, and you very kindly agreed to come here and share your experiences and your story with us.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. So how did ME kind of start occurring for you and what impact it had on you?
Yeah, I mean, ME kind of snuck up on me really. At first there were symptoms that didn't impact on my life, so I used to get quite sore joints and things like that. And then that kind of gradually increased into one day where suddenly I just had a lot of pain at work, and I ended up having to cut down hours at work, and then I stopped completely as my symptoms grew, up to the point where I was bedbound and had very little movement, and that really was how I was by the time I ended up talking to you.
So it was quite gradual to begin with, is that right? And then there was quite a sudden decline, or
yeah, I mean, there was quite it was quite gradual, and then there was a bit of a dip, and then it was quite peaks and troughs for me. So sometimes I would have good days, and sometimes I would have bad days, but it steadily declined.
Yeah.
So each bad was usually a little bit worse.
So what were your main symptoms at that point then?
At that point, I wasn't able to move very much. I used to get spasms in my arm, and my arm would start jumping around. And I used to get very confused. I used to have a lot of brain fog, which made it very difficult to think, and I wasn't able to cope with a lot of situations. For example, I only felt quite safe with certain people, and really it was quite a scary place to be in. Yeah,
it sounds it. No, I remember what it was like when I had ME myself, that it's very isolating. So we're talking about, 2003 at this point?
Yes. Yeah.
So what kind of information support was around at that time?
At that time I didn't find that there was very much. I mean, I contacted the doctor and I had tests done to confirm that it was ME. And really the support from there wasn't a lot. I was offered graded exercise, but that proved to be just to take the journey proved to be too much.
So you needed graded travel.
I did, yeah. And it was just too much, and so that had to be knocked on the head. And following that was about it really in terms of support from medical practitioners. Okay,
so you, at this point, quite severely affected, didn't really have much support or understanding from the medical profession. So how did you get from that point to speaking with us? I remember very clearly the first time we spoke, Katherine, but what was the transition from that place to speaking with myself?
Yeah, I mean, really, after I kind of ran out of options for the medical profession, I did try different therapies like acupuncture and all that kind of thing, and that didn't prove to be too helpful for me, so I was still on the search for something. And then my grandma found an article that talked about your approach to ME and that you'd suffered yourself, and I just thought, oh, this person sounds like somebody that would be able to help me. So from there we got in touch and gave you a call. Okay, so as I said, I remember the call very well. But another term, how did you feel about, because in the article the approach talked about me approaching more from the mind rather than the body. How did you feel about that, and what was it about it that did help you to make the decision to call? I think in some ways it was almost the phrasing of it. It's because the idea that it's kind of all in your mind is something that you hear as the sufferer from ME, and at that time I used to find it very, very frustrating, and I used to always feel quite angry sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was thinking, well, if I could, I would stand up. I would get up and I'd be out of this
here for any for no reason.
Yeah, I'm not making it up. And I think the way you described it made me understand that that's not what you meant by saying that it was caused by thoughts that you were having. and that reassured me that you weren't going to be saying, get up, because I really couldn't.
Yeah.
And so that was very reassuring to know that you actually understood and was why I called.
And I think when I went through my recovery and I started looking at the mind-based approaches as well, as you said, I get really angry if someone would have said that to me. Yeah. But as we see it's a very real physical illness. It's just our thoughts and the way that we react and behave around things can have a very physiological reaction. Yeah.
I think I tried a lot of other things as well, and I'd eliminated certain foods and worked on diet. And like I say, I'd done the medical approach, I'd tried alternative therapies, and it was really the only thing left that I could see that might have an impact is to look at the chemicals I was releasing myself essentially into my own system, to look at it from that angle.
Sure. So picking the phone up and making that call, I guess, was quite a big thing.
It was a huge step, yeah.
So what was it about either the article or the information that you received beforehand? What was it that helped you to pick that phone up and call me?
I think it was knowing you'd been through the same thing. That was a big impact, because it to me, trust was a big issue, and I just couldn't see how somebody who had ME themselves would try and help people if they didn't think that they could, so that was really good. I also looked on your website to see who else had been through similar things and recognised myself in their stories.
Sure.
So I think they're the main reasons really where I thought, and plus I was really sick of being in bed. It was time to move on.
Okay, so you came, as we said, and did the programme early 2007.
Yeah.
So it would be good to give a little bit of information about what benefits you gained and how it's helped you to start turning things around.
Yeah. I mean, really, coming and taking part was the biggest change I've ever made in my life. It was amazing. I mean, physically, my physical symptoms stopped very, very early on. It was quite dramatic. But if I didn't look after myself in the way that I led my life and decisions I made, and then I would find that some physical symptoms would come back.
Sure.
So it was very important for me to keep my stress under control, and that was something that took a little bit longer. But at the same time, I was able to go anywhere I wanted. I was able to go and see friends. I was able to, my life started growing again at that point.
Because I remember it was one of the most dramatic experiences that I had. That you came in a wheelchair, and then a few days later you were able to walk down the steps.
No, it was faster than that.
Oh, was it?
It was. The way I remember it anyway. I remember coming in the wheelchair, and after that first session, I think it was the first session, I left with my dad, and we walked around Darlington for an hour and a half.
Which seems quite dramatic.
It does.
I think if you've not gone through it or seen someone go through it, it's almost like it seems impossible. But I know for you that was your own experience. I
mean, I don't know whether that's unusual or whether that was just me, but I think something almost clicked with me, and I don't know whether that resulted in my stress levels suddenly taking a plummet, and I was able to move. I'm not really quite sure, but I know I never went back in it. So
that's really, really good.
Yeah.
So obviously lots of changes happened quite quickly at that time, but you also said you realised, you noticed that it was a longer term focus to make sure it was sustainable.
I couldn't at that point have been able to go, okay, I can physically move, now I'm going to go and get a full-time job.
Sure.
That was too much of a jump, and that would have set me back, I think. So instead I started, in the same way that my life shrunk, I started to grow it again. So I think some of my first steps were I used to go out to somewhere familiar with somebody I knew, and then I'd go somewhere familiar by myself, and then I'd start meeting new people, and I started volunteering part-time at the library that's just up the road, and like I say, now I'm working full time. So it just kept going, really.
And it's fantastic to see you, because we haven't met, have we, since 2007. So
Yes.
to see you then, who was someone who did look quite ill, very, very thin, to somebody who's now fit and healthy, it's fantastic to see how you've improved and how well you've done, Katherine.
Thank you.
So
it's been wonderful.
So thank you for sharing your story today, and I'm sure that you would have found that really helpful. If you'd like some more information about the approach that Katherine mentions and the programmes that we run, please look at our website. It's www.uwellbeing.com. Thank you. Thank you, Katherine.
Thank you.